So, hi guys, welcome back. Today we'll be doing a comparison between Ford and NIO and seeing which company would be a better buy in the electric vehicle market. Ford is set to invest more than $30 billion into the electric vehicle market by 2025 and has massively ramped up its electrical vehicle producing as well. While NIO as a whole has had the backup of the Chinese government, has had a massive base in China, and is looking to branch out into Europe as well. Today we're going to be doing a comparison between these two companies. If you do enjoy, consider subscribing. It is free and it does help me out a ton. If not, thanks for watching anyway. Onto the video. So over the last 5 years, we could see Ford has remained relatively flat. However, it did have a very good 2020, being up close to 200%. Its PE ratio has been very cheap. Has a P ratio of slightly over 15, which makes it a very cheap buy, especially in a very overvalued US market as of right now. Compare that to NIO. NIO has been extremely volatile, up more than 2,000% throughout 2020, but since the beginning of 2021, it was down about 35%, then had a slight bump and is down about 25% as a whole. So if we look at Ford and NIO and their how much they've invested into the electric vehicle market, Ford's fleet as a whole is not electric vehicles focused, but this is going to change. Ford said that it is accelerating its electrification plans by investing more than $30 billion into its electric vehicle manufacturing by 2025. This is on top of the original $22 billion, which they've now changed to $30 billion, that they invested into zero-emission vehicles as well. Ford has set quite ambitious sales on a goal. 40% of its global sales will be electric within the next decade, and 33% of pickup truck sales as well. Currently, electric vehicle sales account for just 1% of Ford sales, and they have been trying to phase out combustion engines and is set to be all electric by 2040. So what is the market opportunity for electric vehicles? In 2020, there were 3.2 million electric vehicles sold, which represented a market share of all cars about 4.2%. China, however, was responsible for buying 41% of these 3.2 million vehicles, and they purchased close to 1.3 million vehicles last year, and sales are set to grow as fast as Beijing seeks to boost its electric vehicle production as well. The second largest market for electric vehicles was Europe, which accounted for 42% of the global electric vehicle sales as well. US was third market in the plug-in electric vehicles in the world as well. So China by far is currently the fastest growing electric vehicle market in the world, and although Europe is catching fast due to the legislative efforts of many of the governments in Europe, NIO is on the cusp of entering the European market in a bid to grow its market share in the world's second largest electric vehicle market before competition is ready. With the backing of the Chinese government and already an extremely strong base in China with its market share and the amount of sales it makes in China, going into Europe could be a game changer for NIO, and that could catapult it onto world stage in terms of competing with Tesla and other companies in Europe as well. Beijing is a driver between the electrification of the Chinese auto industry. The government wants to see a 20% share of all electric vehicles for new car sales by 2025, and will increase the electric vehicle penetration in NIO's home market as well. So if we look at growth projection, we could see that there are more favorable policies for electric vehicles in places like China and Europe, and these markets are set to see the fastest sales for growth and highest electric vehicle adoption rates in the world. China has the largest market size, but also expected to outperform all other markets in electric vehicle sales until 2020, by 2030. And with NIO looking to branch out into Europe, I would definitely see in terms of growth projections, NIO is definitely a plus. Now, if you look at the scale of manufacturing, Ford has a century's worth of manufacturing experience, but only has one all-electric vehicles in its lineup. Compared to NIO, NIO has multiple electric vehicles manufacturing as well, which would put it ahead in terms of the number of cars it can produce. However, Ford has larger pockets, it has more experience, it has more research centers, it has more manufacturing centers, which would mean that Ford can quickly catch up in this regard, and due to the more money that it has, I see Ford could increase its scale and manufacturing competence much faster. So I would give scale and manufacturing to Ford due to its size and the history that it has, and the able and the pockets that it has to increase its production very fast. So they do have two different revenue models. So Ford and NIO both know the importance of differentiation in the market, and as the market will get more and more competitive over time, this is why both companies are investing heavily into a related field that they can solidify dominance in the electric vehicle market. So Ford is forming a joint venture with a South Korean battery technology company, SK Innovation, to secure and supply of traction battery cells and array modules. The joint venture is meant to accelerate battery deliveries and will produce almost 60 gigawatt an hour annually, enough to cover more than 25% of Ford's estimated annual energy demand by 2030. NIO is also investing in battery technology and has formed its own joint venture to secure battery supply. So the difference between Ford and NIO's investment strategy is based around the battery subscription model, also known as battery as a service, or BaaS, as I was referring to it previously. So under the BaaS model, users who buy a NIO electric vehicle can get 70,000 RMB initial discount, which is equivalent to about $10,800, and can sign up for a monthly subscription to rent a rechargeable 70 kilowatt an hour battery, which could make a recurring revenue stream for NIO as well. So Ford is running slightly different. The BaaS model has a couple of benefits for both the vehicle maker and the user. Purchasing an electric vehicle for NIO could become a lot more affordable due to the upfront discount, and the subscription model ensures that users will benefit from advancement in battery technology and better performance over time. So because NIO will now have a subscription model, it would have a more it will be able to expect its revenues and would have a more reoccurring revenue stream, which can be very, very profitable for this company. So the next thing we'll be looking at is the quarter one's earnings report from both companies. So if we look at Ford first, they had an adjusted earnings before interest tax of 4.8 billion and a margin of 13.3%. Despite the disruption of their semiconductor supply chain, they had a North America earnings before interest tax of 12.8%, and in Europe they had a 4.8% there as well. Their overseas operation delivers an earnings before interest tax of 0.5 billion, which is an improvement of 1 billion year over year. In the electrification revolution, they have a 1 billion investment in a new electric vehicle manufacturing center in Germany, and they have a Ford European passenger vehicles will be completely all electric by 2030 as well, in Europe only. So what was their first quarter financial results? So they had an adjusted free cash flow, which was up 1.8 billion. Their revenue was up 1.9 billion. The adjusted earnings before interest tax was up 5.4 billion. The adjusted earnings before interest tax margin was up 15.1 points. And the adjusted earnings per share was up $1.12. So these are just some of the products that they are releasing that they believe will be pushing it forward into both releasing new cars, releasing new services, and the electric vehicle market as well. The main thing, however, is the electrification revolution. They're investing more than 1 billion into a new electric vehicle manufacturer center in Germany. This was as part of the original 22 billion electrification investment, which have now increased to $30 billion. This is Ford's first European-built volume electric passenger vehicle for the European customers, and this will be up and running and start selling cars, creating cars by 2023. By mid-2026, all Ford European passenger vehicles will be either plug-in hybrid or all electric, and they will be all completely electric by 2030. By 2024, all Ford European commercial vehicles will be zero emission capable, and by 2020, 2/3 of commercial vehicles will expect it to be all electric or a plug-in hybrid. So for NIO's vehicle sales, we can see compared to throughout quarter 2 of 2020, they had close to 10,500. Quarter 2020, quarter 3, they had about 12,200. 2020, quarter 4, 17,300. And quarter 1 of 2021, they sold more than 20,060 cars. Their vehicle sales are worth about $1,130 million, which is an increase of 490%. Their vehicle margin was 21.2%, which is compared to a negative 7.4% in 2020. Their revenue was 1,218 million, which was an increase of 482% year over year. Their gross profit was 237 million, which was a solid increase from last year as well, and more than 36% compared to the fourth quarter of 2020. Their gross margin was 19.5%, which is compared to a negative 12.2% in 2020 and a 17.2% in the fourth quarter of 2020 as well. So you can see throughout 2020, NIO has made a lot more sales. They've been growing their deliveries by a few thousand each quarter. On top of this, they have made more and more money. They've actually made a gross profit this time, and they have increased their revenue, increasing sales. So overall, 2020 was a very good for NIO as a whole. So if we look at their May 2021 delivery update, this was the most recent update by their management. They delivered 6,711 vehicles in May of 2021, which is a 95.3% year-over-year growth. This consisted of ES8s, their ES6s, and this EC6s as well, and their electric coupe SUV as well. So as of May 31st, 2021, the cumulative deliveries of the ES8, the ES6, and the EC6 reached 109,514 vehicles total. In May, the company's vehicle delivery was adversely impacted. This is coming from the management for several days due to the volatility of the semiconductor supply and certain logistical adjustments as well. Based on current production and delivery plan, the company will be able to accelerate their delivery in June to make up any lost sales from May. And the company maintains and reiterates a delivery guidance of 21,000 to 22,000 vehicles in the second quarter of 2021, which will be about a 2,000 vehicle increase compared to the quarter one of 2021 as well. The last thing we'll be looking at is a technical analysis. As we saw over the last 5 years, Ford has remained relatively stable. However, over the last year, the stock price has increased really exponentially, up more than 200%. However, the stock price is trading much higher than its 20-day simple moving average. It is trading about 50 cents higher. So once again, I would suggest an entry price of close to $13.50, closer to its 50-day simple moving average. Ford being a much cheaper stock than NIO in terms of just the dollar value, it could see its growth be much faster as the stock price can increase. The stock price can exponentially increase much faster, even though due to the stock price being cheaper for Ford. So for Ford, I would suggest buying long puts. We could see the stock price over the next 2 to 3 years increase really high, based on how their electric vehicle gamble will pay out. It will require a small upfront capital, but its return on investment could be very high if it does pay out. I would suggest the same for NIO. It will be slightly more expensive, but the growth story for NIO is definitely more promising. So once again, NIO, another one, buy long puts for the next 2 to 3 years, a small upfront capital required, but the return on investment could be very high. NIO stock is trading slightly more conservatively to Ford, even though the stock price is valued much higher. We could, once again, I would say an entry price of between $40 and $42, somewhere there. 45 is slightly higher than I would like. So as a whole, we could see Ford and NIO are both investing heavily into its electric vehicle respectively services. NIO has a battery as a service model, has a backup in China, and is looking to expand in Europe as well. So as a whole, I would feel like NIO is a better electric vehicle play. However, Ford does have a very promising growth story as well. So that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you do choose to invest in either Ford or NIO, make sure to do your own due diligence. And thanks for watching. Bye.